Thank you for the nice introduction. And Professor Wien, I'm very happy that you are here all the time and you are organizing this meeting for so many years. We have been here for the first time in 2012, and since then we know each other, and I'm really fascinated how active you are and all the people around you. It's fantastic. And we are always talking on the same level. We are not developing land and first line cardiology practicing country. We are exchanging, and it is always very interesting for me to see this here, and it's a very familiar atmosphere. So, this meeting was heart failure, first of all, and I had the chance, I gave some title of my talk before we came here over, and I realized only during this night that this is heart failure session. So I had to look for stress echo in heart failure specifically. This is my talk, and I looked for the guidelines. And looking for the guidelines, and these are the best guidelines in my eyes, for heart failure, better than the European alone. And I'm looking for search modality for stress echo. There's nothing in for stress echo in heart failure. Everybody tells you that you need an echo. You told me today you know handheld echo. You have in every place you have a normal echo machine. But this is okay. This is the first one classification. And then looking for stress echo in patients with heart failure and coronary artery disease and, of course, heart failure. You can do stress echocardiography, but at the same time, single photon emission CT, SPECT, CMR, and PET is same level. And this is the situation we face every day in Germany, that we have a competition around us. It's much easier, this is my message to everybody, echocardiography is much easier, but it's more complicated, and the radiologists, they do nothing more than just sitting behind the computer, and we are doing it practically, and it's much more complicated, time-consuming, the stress echocardiography. But I'm fighting for it, and you will see it. So how do I prefer stress echo? For years, for many, many, many years, I did it because I'm right-handed echocardiographer, and I had to do it like that. And I had this old-fashioned style bed to do stress echocardiography. And we had this prescription that we start at 25 watts, but we are increasing faster than just 2 minutes for each step. We want to do it faster because I believe personally, and this is my experience, that more than 90% of all our patients can be physically stressed. And if you wait for that they have problems with their legs or with peripheral arterial perfusion, so this is not the reason. You must stress the heart, and you can do it very fast. And we do it as soon as possible, we go higher. And one thing which is really important is at the end of the stress echocardiography, you give nitroglycerin. You must be very careful because the blood pressure goes down and patients fall down at the same time. Okay, so this is one thing. The rest is, in former times we always had 12 lead EKG. I did not use it any longer for many times, but now you will see it in a minute. I'll use it again because the EKG is valuable. I believe it, and if you have somebody at your side who prepares everything, then you can save time. The first stress echo level is always with better quality than the resting echo. If the patient respires, it moves the heart up and down, and you will find a situation where you'll find. And we are always retrospectively collecting our data. That means we are looking for the stress echo, the images, blah, 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 and that which is really good for us, I save that. And not prospectively and looking, perhaps I have the chance that he will have a good echo afterwards. And you should never talk to the patient during the stress echo, because he comes with complaints And he says, oh, I have the complex. I see it on my screen. And then afterwards you must apologize. I didn't see anything, but you have impressed me so much. Okay, so discuss unclear findings with your colleagues. And 3D, definitely for me, is a gimmick because the frame rate is low. And the next is you cannot have any of these planes in your direct visualization in the 3D. And today I'm working in a different way. We have invented at the time, in former times, we have invented this first bit we had, but now I must say that it is much better. We have this, I had the impression that I can use the pointer. The pointer is here. And I'm here, and this is the bed. So this is a normal bed, and there is a hole here, and I can put every patient to the left side. And then if I have the fun to do it, I do stress echo, I put it out, and then I can give inclination and rotation to the bed. This is fantastic, this time, this machine. And we have now 12 lead EKG, and of course you need an optimal machine. Okay, so going further. This is, I'm a little bit older now and a little bit fat around the hip, but everything is okay. And I do this examination now from the other side. I cross the patient. I can do it with my right side, and we have space. Oh, no, sorry. What did I do wrong here? Okay. So, what is new in stress echocardiography? And this is really exciting, and this is really, for me, it's shocking a little bit. The new guidelines from the American side and, of course, of the European side, it is specifically Eugenio Picano who has invented the stress echocardiography. In former times when we started with stress echocardiography, I went all the time to Italy and we had large courses there, and he has done everything on stress echocardiography. And Pellica is the editor of American Society of Cardiography journal, and she cooperates with it. So the American guidelines will be exactly the same what we have seen here. And what is wrong with me? Okay, so there are some prefaces to the new guidelines. One preface is that we have reasons to change the stress echo guidelines. And one is that in former times we had 60% or more pathological cases, and now we are performing, and this is the experience from all over the world, that you have less than 10% of pathological cases. This is not at all my personal experience, but this is what he describes. The next, what he describes is another remark, that there are many symbols and many characteristic signs of ischemic cardiomyopathy, which is not directly found out by stress echocardiography. I do not believe that. He wants to have a parameter scale for many points, and then he wants to calculate the probability of having coronary artery disease. He calls it vulnerability. I had never heard this term before, but he calls it. And the third is the simplicity of the new parameters. I will go through very fast through his ideas, but he has created a new cascade of ischemia. And we all knew that is from former times, but now one thing is that he adds the coronary flow velocity reserve. And the coronary flow velocity reserve, everybody who has some idea on stress knows that this is adenosine and this is a microvascular problem, which he looks for here. The next is diastolic dysfunction. I will talk about diastolic dysfunction. I'm very happy that it is diastolic dysfunction, not at all, and not directly HFpEF, and then regional wall motion analysis, and the rest we know already. Chest pain is at the end of this cascade. That means when the patient has chest pain, it's everything is already done. Okay, this is the new scale. And this is a ABCDE scale or system, and I would go very fast through it. The first is regional wall motion analysis. He still accepts this as a very important point. But the next is the B lines. B lines is congestion, left heart congestion, which you might see by sonography of the lung, and he does it from the anterior wall and to the axillary side. And you can see these B lines, which are artifacts. But I warn everybody that B lines is not so easy to find out. And just in the new American Society of Echocardiography journal, it is written that you need a very high mechanical index. You should not do it with our standard echocardiographic machines, and harmonic imaging is very difficult to use with that also. So the simplest machine does better B lines than what we do with our high sophisticated other machines. The next he finds out is I will go through it in a minute. This is the system to contractility reserve. This means that you should calculate in all patients the end systolic volume. And this is difficult to do normally. For when we do all that qualitatively, we never calculate the volumes. I do it since these guidelines are out. I do it, and we must try to find some experience for ourselves. And this is the cardiovascular flow reserve, and this is something which I discussed in the workshop yesterday, and we had really a very big struggle with all these experienced people around from Ho Chi Minh City here. I guarantee that in any patient I will find, or you will find, the LAD. But the problem with the LAD, you must find the LAD and you must give adenosine. And with adenosine or dipyrimidol, we do not use this in Germany, but you give adenosine, and with adenosine you are reducing the resistance in the peripheral arteries. And all that gives you some idea, if it's not the double of the initial value, gives you the idea that there is a microvascular problem. But this is a point which I do not agree at all, and the rest is that we should look for the heart rate. And the heart rate is also a problem because we are always using stress echocardiography also together with beta blockers. There's no reason that you take the beta blockers away, and this is a risk for the patient. He will have atrial fibrillation or whatever, and you give reserve drugs. This is not possible. This is not really useful. So we have written a little paper, so I apologize for German technology here, but this is, everybody knows the bullseye visualization of the territories of the central territories of the coronary artery supply. So I will show you an example, and I'm training this together with Malte Zinning, because Malte Zinning, he likes echocardiography, but he is not the true expert. And when I ask Professor Zinning, what do you believe that this patient has as pathology? You see, you can see everything here. You see long axis with 50 watt, 100 watt, 125 watt, and so far, and post-exercise. And we must be very careful when I show you examples now. This is a clear example. This is the pathology part, which you should recognize. If you do not recognize this directly yourself from the beginning, I put in the arrows, and you see that there is a pathology movement. That means this area, anterolateral, is not really well contracting under stress, and after stress, everything is gone. So in the four-chamber view, there is similar, but not so. And this is more the supply area for the left anterior descending aorta, and this here is the circumflex artery. So what is your idea on it? It can be very nicely. And I told you, after I've read the guidelines, new guidelines, I do in nearly all patients with stress echocardiography very fast the strain analysis. And with strain analysis, it's quite obvious that this patient has in the anterolateral area here, in this area, he has a problem. And this is obvious that this is post-systolic strain, which is ischemia equivalent. and you can show it, and you can also show how the function of the ventricle changes over time, and there is no decrease in end-systolic volume. So this is okay, but he has an ischemia in the D1 region, and it's quite obvious when you do the coronary angiography afterwards, you see that this is the right diagnosis. This is extremely effective, and more than 90% of patients can be examined by physical stress echocardiography. So I defend this situation before you do an MRI or before you do a CT scan, which gives always very positive results, but false positive results, and this is a true functional analysis. You need not more than you put a stent in, everything is okay. Okay, then stress echo, in addition to regional wall motion analysis for, let's say, Inuka, I didn't talk about that, but for epicardial coronary arteries, what are the further indications? And I defend the position that we are talking about diastolic function analysis. All what we are talking about when we are talking about heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, this is a myocardial disease, diastolic function analysis, but in many cases you have also hypertensive heart disease, you have calcified aortic stenosis, calcified mitral rings, whatever, but this is not the disease. The disease is the old patient with a lot of other diseases around the heart, and it is primarily a diastolic function disease. And what we need for diastolic function disease is anti-proBNP. We know it for a long time now, and we need the systolic pulmonary pressure. And when this systolic pulmonary pressure increases from normal values to pathological values under stress, this is if the patient has a good function in the left ventricular under resting conditions is okay, but if you measure the pulmonary pressure under stress and it increases, it's always a sign of left ventricular diastolic function. Okay, so go further, E2 over E prime, I do not accept that at all because it is not feasible, and there are very few patients out who do people out who do echocardiography using this terminology. And lift legs, Valsalva, classical diastolic function parameters, this is obvious that this works extremely well. The next is anti-proBNP. We have talked about that. What do we do beyond regional wall motion analysis, AOCM, valvular heart disease, and aortic stenosis, watchful waiting? We do it very easily, and mitral regurgitation. These are the cases we are using. Okay, now again to the guidelines. And HFpEF, again, I must defend my position now, and the guidelines, of course, they write HFpEF, and they tell you that it is absolutely necessary to have additional objective measures of cardiac dysfunction, elevated natriuretic peptides, and provocable exercise fluid challenge, increase filling pressures by lifting the legs, and I do not at all accept this here. This is the Fehske paper written on this HFpEF score. He never does echocardiography, but he writes articles on that, about that, and non-invasive diastolic stress test is a ridiculous story for my eyes. You should measure, and this is very easily under resting conditions, all these parameters, we know these. Global strain under stress for diastolic stress is not well known. Nobody really knows if that works. A diastolic stress test, the easiest is to measure the systolic pulmonary pressure. And in very early papers, it is so obvious that you do some kind of Valsalva maneuver, you lift the legs, and you have absolute the certainty that you have found out the diastolic dysfunction. Okay, going further to the management of heart valve disease, and it is described in the guidelines in asymptomatic patients with aortic regurgitation, aortic stenosis, mitral regurgitation. There is very few place for stress echo, and this is new because in former times the former guidelines showed us that it could be useful to measure the pulmonary pressure. It is not in the guidelines today, and you can read through that all what you. Unfortunately, the velocity the valvular heart disease survey indicates that it's rarely performed in asymptomatic patients. I really stress the importance of stress echocardiography in valvular heart disease. It's extremely important, specifically when we in Germany stress the TEER, that means the interventional treatment of mitral or tricuspid regurgitation. You should do a stress echo. Look what happens under stress. It can be completely stable, or it increases abruptly the systolic pressure, and you will see that the mitral regurgitation increases, and so far and so forth. So what is with the aortic stenosis now in the guidelines? At least this is in the guidelines, that you do a normal stress test, and if the pressure falls down, then you should operate even if he's asymptomatic. And I will show you a patient. This is a bicuspid valve, and with this bicuspid valve, we stress this asymptomatic patient. He's written asymptomatic patient, and you see that the mean pressure gradient increases from, I like to have a pointer, I cannot have the pointer. I'm sure there is a pointer, but I cannot show it to you. You see that the pressure is from 78, 87 to 107, now it works, 107 millimeters, but he is asymptomatic, and he contracts very well, and so we do watchful waiting. This is still the guideline correct answer. I try to do that, but it doesn't work. Now it works. Say here. Okay. Okay. Develop task force of your heart disease and mitral regurgitation. Malte, he surely knows all that paper already, and everybody is talking about when do we surgery, when do we do TER. But it is very interesting to know that exercise may help to identify patients with severe mitral when 2D echocardiography addresses inconclusive. I do not know how many, Malte, I ask you that personally, how many patients with before MRI, TER, you are doing stress echo. It could be very interesting and increase your numbers to have an indication. Okay. Next one is that you find this also in the American guidelines, which I prefer in any way. Exercise invasive, asymptomatic, moderate or severe primary mitral regurgitation. And you can see an example here. You see how we do it. I hope that I have the pointer. I have the pointer. This is the three apical planes. And then there is the next is, I hope that I will show it to, we have the color. And at the end, we have the pressure in the pulmonary artery. And we are measuring all that under stress. And you see here in this patient, he could only stress until 75 watts. And what happened? There's, you see color, and then TR. You will exactly see what happened. Oh, can you please start the... It works on my machine. Oh, it is one of the most important things I want to show in my presentation. Can you start the... This must be... Oh, okay. I take the next one. I hope that this works. Does not work neither. Oh. Okay. There were other... I've taken the images of the publication, so this is a standstill, but it is extremely useful to see that the pressure increases from, no chance to put in the, increases to 61 from normal values 25 before. Okay, this is mitral regurgitation, and then at the rest I can show, unfortunately, before the talk of Dr. Schlotterbeck, who will come in a minute, I will show you this is an example with hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, and it is well known that under stress conditions, you might perhaps not directly find it, but after stress and at the bottom, you can see it, they develop this dynamic interventricular obstruction, and you see it under normal conditions, and under physical stress, everything is okay, but after stress and with nitroglycerin, you have this diagnosis. So after operation, I defend the moral resection, which has been done in this patient. There is no outflow tract obstruction, and the patient is happy. And I'm also happy because I've finished my talk in much too much time. Sorry.